We're going to hear from John in just a bit. But before we get started, we want to know who is here today. So John, if we can head over to the intro slide, perfect. If you guys can locate the chat box, if you want to let us know in the chat, what subjects or courses do you teach? Have you ever used CodeHS before? I know we'll have a lot of people brand new to CodeHS, but we may have a mix. And do you have any experience teaching computer science or programming? And what does that look like? So it's really helpful for us to know these things so that we can tailor this to make sure you get what you came for. Awesome. So we see middle school CS, awesome, and engineering. I taught engineering, but high school. Taught high school math, never CodeHS. Okay, awesome. High school math, we got lots of math. Awesome, we got a lot of people coming in too. All right, Massachusetts.
Tried CodeHS as a student. That's awesome, Anna. That's cool. Great.
Yeah, lots of math here I'm seeing. Oh, librarian. Cool, love that. 3 high school CS. Intro to AP, awesome. Yeah, we have a lot of math teachers who are getting ready to bring some CS into their classrooms.
That was me.
You know, it's in California, the CS courses count as math now. Like AP counts as a core math, and intro counts as a math elective. So it's kind of nice, the convergence of the two of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, Alaska is now allowing CS as math as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I see robotics, hands-on, in-person and online. Awesome. Lots of different ways to use CodeHS. So this is going to be great. You're going to get a lot of awesome tips from John on how to use this in lots of different ways. All right, so we are going to get started so that we can get through all of our jam-packed information for our session. So thank you for introducing yourself in the chat. And we are going to be using, I think the next slide is about our parking lot. First, so if you would like to have the slides up, you can go to this link that Lindsay has dropped in the chat. We have actually 3 CodeHS PD specialists here with us today. Me, Julia, Lindsay is here as well. And we have Dawn working to answer your questions too on the back end. So we have a lot of us here ready to help you, ready to make sure that you are leaving with the information you were looking for. But if you would like to have this slide deck up and open in the background for yourself, you can open this link, and you will also get a link to the slides as well with the recording at the end of this session. So you'll see that the chat kind of blew up a little bit. And we want to make sure that anytime you ask a question, you are going to make sure you get the answer that you came for. And we want to make sure we give that answer with as much information as possible. So usually we'll give you a link to an article or something to help you. So John, if we go to the next slide, here is a link to the question parking lot that we're going to use. So this is definitely something you want to keep up on the side as you listen to our session today. This has a lot of helpful links at the top. So you'll see the slide link is right there. Some links that you're going to be getting in a few minutes are going to be there as well. And that is where you can throw any questions in at any point throughout our session. And we'll make sure that we go in and we answer them. I know that you'll be tempted to write them in the chat. So we may direct you in the chat to the question parking lot, just so that we know all your questions are not getting lost and they have an answer that you can revisit. Awesome. All right. So that is what you want to have up with you. All right, we can move on. All right, so our agenda for today, we did a quick virtual check-in. We're going to look at what CodeHS is in general and the code editor that we use. John's going to run through a lesson from the student perspective. So if you have never used CodeHS before, which it sounded like a lot of you have not, you'll be able to see exactly how a student will feel going through the course. we're going to take a look at the course catalog. So we're going to look at one lesson from one course today, but we're going to be able to see all the different courses that are available. So I saw people teaching all different courses. We have so many offerings in our catalog. So we're going to take a look there and then see how do you set up courses and sections that your students can join, and what are the tools and resources that CodeHS provides so that you can be successful in your classroom with your students. So we have a lot of awesome things coming your way. All right, so the first thing we need to do is make sure that you get an account. So you can go right to this link that Lindsay dropped in the chat. If you already have a CodeHS account, just open it, log in, because we're going to join a demo section today that we're going to use. If you do not have an account, just make sure you sign up as a teacher. This will allow you to access a lot of different materials and resources that obviously a student should not have. And you will be prompted to enter some information about your school so that we can verify your account. So we know that we're getting access to a teacher and not a student. So we're gonna start there with this sign up link. And once you have your account, you're gonna join our demo section. And that link is coming. So once you are signed into CodeHS, you can click this link to enroll right in our workshop section. If it asks you for a class code, it's just those last 5 digits, so 51048. And this is exactly the way that your students will join sections in your classroom. So you'll give them a link like this, they will join that course. All right, so I'm gonna just pause for a few seconds. If you are having any trouble getting signed up or getting into our demo section, you can head right over to the parking lot and write that in there, and we will help you out from the back end. All right, and the last thing, once you have your CodeHS account, all you have to do to be recorded for our attendance and get a certificate for today's session is click this link, and it will just say you're here, you're good, but it's linked to your CodeHS account. So make sure you have a CodeHS account before you click on this link.
All right, thanks a lot, Julia. Here we go. As Sue mentioned, there's a lot that we're going to cover today. My guess is many of you will be a little overwhelmed, so feel free to go back and watch the recording and go through all the material that we touched on today, because there's going to be a lot of it. Just a little background about me. I was a computer science major in college back when this is what a really good computer looked like. And it filled a room, and those little terminals in the front were the Cadillacs that we all wanted to get our hands on when we were trying to get our work done at the computer lab. Not many people had personal computers back in those days. That led to 15 years of programming and technical support in the private sector, if you will. And after my son was born and I spent some time with him as a stay-at-home dad, I enrolled in the New York City Teaching Fellows Program, and I've been teaching for 16 years here in Brooklyn. I did 9 years as a math teacher, and now I've been about 7 years as a computer science teacher. And so I feel like I've kind of come back to my roots as a computer science teacher. In my spare time when I have it, I like to fly small airplanes like this one. I belong to a flying club that's based in New Jersey that's been around since the 60s. And we have a couple of planes and 30 people that share them. So that's kind of a cool little cooperative that I belong to. And way back in the distant past, I spent the summer bicycling across the country, and this is a photo from Yellowstone Park as we were entering there. That was one of those adventures I took as a kid, and someday hope to do it again. So we're going to get started. That's a little bit about me. We're going to talk about CodeHS now. So CodeHS, we're going to start by looking at the platform. It contains a lot of material, a lot of resources, but it is basically a teaching platform for teaching computer science in the middle school and high school. So there are curriculum for students 6th through 12th grade for a variety of different topics. There are professional development videos and documentation that you can use to learn what you need to know about teaching computer science, best practices, and there's a community of teachers that share their lessons and problems in the problem bank. There's a full software platform for both the student, excuse me, and for the teacher. So really important to understand that the students have a really good platform for doing their programming work, and the teacher has a great platform on the other side for grading, giving feedback, and designing those curricula that the students are going to be using. A little bit of CodeHS history. Jeremy and Zach, these two cute young guys here, that met freshman year at Stanford, and they were computer science geeks, and they taught computer science in classes, and they felt like there needed to be some tools for that. So they started developing those, and CodeHS was the result that they started in 2012 in their senior year. They've traveled around the country visiting lots and lots of classrooms for research and deployment. So they have a good, a good view of how their products and their tools are used in the classroom. By the way, if anyone has a question, or if the facilitators in the background see any questions that they think ought to be raised, feel free to interrupt me. So the mission here at CodeHS is to empower all the students to meaningfully impact the future. And I like to add on by learning how to code. The read, write, code logo there reflects the idea that coding is really now a very important skill, like reading and writing and arithmetic. So coding is sort of one of those essential skills that CodeHS will hopefully help you to teach. So there's a problem in that a lot of students, a lot of schools don't have computer science classes, but they want to, and there's a deficit in the teachers. There's not enough teachers out there who know how to teach computer science, or that have the tools that they feel are going to be helpful to them. And so CodeHS is trying to fill that gap and provide both the tools and the curriculum for the teachers and the students. So the platform allows, as I mentioned earlier, I believe, instant feedback in the way that the programs are submitted to the teachers. So the student will submit the work, and they can get instant feedback via an auto grader. And then there can also be, of course, manual feedback from the teacher, which is something that I really focus on a lot in my classroom. There's a lot of grading and tracking tools for teachers, so I'll show you some of those as we go along. And one of the really nice things is that all of this stuff is web-based, so you can use it on a Chromebook. You can use it on a variety of different browsers. For you, although a keyboard is nice. even a phone is, access it using a phone. I wouldn't say that a phone is a great device to actually program on, but you can access it on this internet connected device. So it is flexible. And you don't have to download or install anything other than a browser. There's, as we mentioned earlier, a 6th to 12th grade curriculum that covers a lot of different topics that you see listed on the screen here. We will take a good look at that course catalog in a moment so you can see some of the courses offered, and you can take your own time to dive into that and see what it is that might make the most sense for your particular students. So they run the gamut from programming to interdisciplinary modules, hour of code modules that just give people a looks like, okay, good. I don't know what's happening here. For some reason, there we go. Sorry, I had a technical moment there. And here are some of the teacher tools and resources. I will point out some of my favorites. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Mike. For some reason, okay, there we go. There's a lag here, and that's what the problem is. I apologize.
John, if you want to maybe turn your video off, it's
having
a little bit of issues.
I'm not hearing you. Is that Julia speaking? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It seems like we're having a little bit of audio technical issues. So if you maybe want to turn your video off, it might help.
Okay, how is that? Is that any better?
Yeah, it goes in and out. So I will monitor and let you know if it happens again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, yep, sir. I'm sorry about that. All right. So some of the teacher tools and resources that that I find really helpful myself. The progress tracking. Obviously, the automatic gradebook is very helpful, although I will caution you, do not think that it's going to do all the work for you. It is a really helpful tool in filtering out work that is worth looking at or not worth looking at, but it does not necessarily tell you if it's right or not. The seek detection tools are really helpful, and that mainly is a tool that I use as the history. We'll show you that a little bit, where you can see a student's progress in the way that they did their work from minute to minute. You can create your own courses or your own assignments. That's something that I've found also very helpful, in that I can say, add my own questions to the CodeHS curriculum and then have students give free responses to them. Nice thing about that is, A, I can direct students in certain ways that I want to direct them, and B, those things that I add on my own are not usually something that students can look up on the internet. Whereas a CodeHS problem may very well be out there on YouTube or whatever, and that can pose its own problems. But that's going to happen no matter what, because kids share work even among their group chats in class. The lesson plans are really helpful for people who have not taught computer science before. You can put in due dates. You can control who can access what lessons, so you can, control the pace of the class in that way. You can look at how long a student has spent on the platform. There's so many tools that you can use to try to get a good picture of how your students are working. Oh, and the integration with Google Classroom is really great. My school uses Google Classroom, so that makes my life easier. I don't have to type in the names or have the kids sign up. I can just make a section and say, connect to this Google Classroom, and CodeHS takes care of that. So that's real helpful. So they are thinking about the work that we do in trying to make it easier. So we're going to talk about the code editor. That's the main space where the students are going to be doing their work. And it's also a space where you can, I'm sorry, is someone having technical problems?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. The space where you as a teacher can go in and actually run the student's code. You can make changes to it for your own purposes, although it does not change the code on their end. So you can play around with it if you think that there's a mistake that you need to fix. But there's a lot of different things you can do in the editor. So we're going to look at first the left-hand pane, which is called the cheat sheet. The middle pane is the code editor, the coding window. And then the right-hand side is a multi-purpose pane that has a lot of different tabs that you can see there, and we'll go through some of those as well. Along the bottom is also the green dots, which are indicate each activity and they show progress. The color will tell you whether the lesson has been started or completed, or if it needs work. In this case, you can see they're all green, which means they've all been completed. We'll show you more of that in a moment. So we'll start by looking at the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet is the left-hand side of the window, and it contains information that the students need to guide them in sort of their end goal. So it shows what their end result needs to be. And then also really nice is this little bottom portion that shows students what they've just learned in the most recent video typically. So it might be a command or a for loop or an if statement that they've just learned about, so that they can go over that and see that structure and that syntax without going anywhere else. So all the stuff that's really relevant and new for this particular lesson is typically on that pane. So it's a handy little place for them to go. The next part of the window is the code editor. There we go. That's the number 2. And it has several different parts to it. The main window is where they're going to be typing their code in that main window where the line numbers are. Up on the left, there's a gear where you can change the settings of the editor. A variety of different things like color schemes and whether or not it, I can't remember all the settings, but little editor settings. Not something I use a lot, really. You can switch to block view in certain problems, like the Carroll exercises, the HTML exercises, and some of the interdisciplinary programming exercises. So block mode, for those of you who don't know, is sort of the opposite of text mode. Text mode meaning that you have to type the commands on a keyboard, but block view will allow you to drag and drop the commands from a menu. And it simplifies coding, especially for those who have trouble typing or younger students who might have trouble with some of the syntax. I don't use block mode in my high school classes. I find that most students can navigate the syntax. They might complain about it at first, but they can get their hands around it pretty quickly. And the last bit is the area where they write their code. So that's just a big empty window at the moment. The save button is up at the top, and you might think that's really important, but it's less important than you might think, because CodeHS saves their code every minute or two automatically, and it also saves their code every time they run it. So I don't find the need to tell kids to have to save their code very often, but if you are typing code and then you decide to leave that code window and close that, you should save it before you do, just in case it hasn't been saved in the past minute or whatever, and you lose a couple of things. The next thing is my students' favorite button, the submit and continue button. That's what they get to click on when they're done. Typically, the auto grader will take a look at their code and tell them if they've met all the criteria that are set up in the auto grader. And then if they have, it will allow them to submit the work and continue to the next exercise. At that point also, on the back end, the program ends up in the teacher's programming queue. And so I would see that on my end, and I could then go in and grade it. Unless it's an assignment that is completely auto-graded. I don't use that feature very often, but there are some where you can do that. The activity bubbles, as I mentioned, indicate by color how the student is progressing in the lesson or the module. So you'll see, for example, in the activity bubbles on the bottom there, the number 1 has been expanded into a variety of different sub exercises. So that's lesson 1, which shows up as the minus sign. And then there's lessons 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you clicked on those, they would expand to show you what makes up each lesson. All right, let's take a look at that last pane on the right-hand side. This has a bunch of different tabs on it. We'll look at some of them. One of the important ones is the Run tab. The Run Code tab is where students can go ahead and run their code. So it's a great place to test. And they can, if you see those little buttons that look like the play and pause buttons on your iPhone or whatever, you can click through your code one step at a time. You can even go backwards one step at a time in Carol programs. You can also change the speed with the little turtle and rabbit slider. So these are all really handy for kids who are learning how to code, trying to figure out where things are going wrong. The fact that they can step through their code one step at a time is really, really nice. So Carol allows you to do that. Some of the other programming environments do not allow you to step through one step at a time. But that's a really nice one. And Carol is where a lot of students start. The next thing we're going to look at is the assignment tab. The assignment tab is where students can see a more detailed description of the assignment. The nice thing about that is they can have it right next to their coding window, displayed at the same time. So while they're coding, they can look at the assignment and make sure they're meeting all the criteria. Then there is the Docs tab. That's another favorite. Docs is a sort for documentation. And there are, as you can see there in the slide, a list of all the commands that are available to Carol. Carol starts out very simply with only 4 different commands. And if you click on those or scroll down in the pane, you will see descriptions of each command. As you go into other languages like JavaScript or Python, you'll see documentation that is relevant to those programming languages. And it really allows students the power to look up what they need to look up. I don't expect students to remember all the syntax that they've learned after watching it in a video that goes by in 5 minutes. They really need to understand that looking up information is a key part of learning how to code. So the docs are a big, big piece of the platform. And The other thing that students can, or the teachers have access and students have access to is the conversation tab. That's hidden under the More tab. So here you can see there's a box where students can send a message to the teacher, and that pops up on the teacher's grading queue. Teacher can then respond, and you have a direct line between you and the student that is recorded and saved, so you can go back and look at it. So another real nice thing where students can just ask questions, whether they're at home or in the classroom, without having to get the teacher's direct attention at that moment. There's the history tab. And here, if I can just slide away for a second, I thought it might be nice to show you, see if I can find something here. These are demo students. Now, so do you know which student offhand has work? I should have made a note of this beforehand. Okay, this one does. So we'll take a look. No, it's not really.
Yeah, this is the class for today. So
Right,
this
right.
is the students from.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is
Yeah.
from today. I have it. I'm sorry. My mistake.
No problem.
I do have a demo section. Okay, there we go. That was the one I wanted. So here we go. Oliver's done some work. And really, this is really a nice feature. Let's see if I can go to one that's maybe a little more. Okay. So as you can see, now I am in the student's editor. I can run the code just like they do. I can watch what the code does. And this is what the student would see as well. You can see the yellow line highlighting which bit of code is being run at the time. And if I go back and reset it, I can show you how we can step through one step at a time. And you'll even notice at the bottom there, if you can see it, I don't know, there's a counter that shows you in this particular code what the counter value is, which is helpful. And you can see this is not complicated, but you can see where there be times where students might get something in the wrong place. Yeah, so this history, you can see here that the student, in this case, went from nothing to everything all at once. So that would be an indication to me to wonder, how did that happen? Is the student that good that they were able to type this whole program in about a minute's time without making any mistakes? Or did that student copy and paste this code? So that's a way that you can sort of go back and look at how a student got to where they were at the end. You don't just see the end result, you see the whole progress. All right. Let me go back to, sorry. I'll go back to the slide. Okay, great. All right, so that's a lot that we've started with here. That's the code editor. That's what students see and what they're going to be working with. And now I'd like to give you guys a chance to look at it from a student perspective as we go through a lesson. So again, I'll just remind you that if you have a question, you can use that parking lot, or you can drop something if you think it's more immediate into the chat, and the Julia and Don and Lindsay will check in on that and let me know if there are any questions. So we can start here with a quick opening discussion. Drop in the chat in your own words, what is a computer? What are your thoughts on what a computer is? Okay, a device that performs commands. Give you another minute or so. Input, process, output, okay. Programmable device that can carry out the instructions you give it, okay. A device that is programmed, inputs, processes, and output, yeah. Okay, great. All right, so here's a device for storing and processing data. A tool, yeah, great. All right, so a lot of different perspectives and ideas there. All right, so here's a follow-up question. Using the responses on Zoom, the little yes and no, that you can see, answer the question, is a dog a computer? Okay, if you can, use the little reaction button on Zoom that you can get to by clicking on reactions. This gives us a little bit of a summary of answers. All right. Don or Julia, did you see the, oh wait, here we go. I'm seeing it. Okay, we have 18 no's and 2 yeses. A lot of no's out there. I will tell you that if a computer is something that does what you tell it to do, my dog is not a computer. That's my answer. But just interesting question to ponder. Does anyone want to volunteer as to why they thought their dog or a dog is or is not a computer? Do you have any raised hands out there? I don't see any yet. Oh, we got one. Where is it?
We got Christine.
All right, Christine, go. Can you turn her on?
Hi. So I said no because a dog has free will, but there are similarities in that you have to teach a dog like a computer. Everything it needs to know, you have to teach it. Like to teach it to give you its paw, you have to teach what the paw is, what it means. So they're similar, but free will comes in, which a computer doesn't have.
Right. Okay. Very good. Yeah, that's a thoughtful answer. All right. Well, this segues nicely into CodeHS character, and that character is Carol. And you may have heard me talking about Carol already. This is Carol. Carol is a dog that that students really actually come to know and love as they learn to program JavaScript or some of the other Carol is used in some of the other programming curriculum as well. Carol was named after Carol Zapek, who was a 20th century Czech writer who is often known or credited with popularizing the word robot. So Carol was named in honor of him. And one of the nice things I think about Carol's name is it's not really clear if Carol is male or female. And I always find it interesting to hear what students think about that. They'll refer to Carol with different pronouns, and it's always curious as to who uses he and who uses she. And I just kind of go with whatever the student's using. So this is Carol. And Carol is a dog who listens to your commands, and Carol lives in a rather boring grid world. Doesn't have a lot of access to the outside world. But Carol can do simple things. Carol can move, and Carol can pick up and put down tennis balls. So these are the 4 commands that Carol starts out with: move, turn left, put ball, and take ball. They're all pretty self-explanatory. Move, Carol moves 1 dot forward, whichever direction Carol is facing. Turn left will rotate Carol 90 degrees to the left. That's counterclockwise. Put ball puts down a tennis ball wherever Carol happens to be, and Kickball will pick one up at the location where Carol happens to be. You'll notice that there is no turn right, and that is intentional. One of the first things that students are asked to do is to make Carol turn right. And they have to figure out how to do that without a turn right command. Once they do that, they're given the turn right command to make it easier, but that's one of the exercises they go through. The syntax is important, no spaces, all lowercase, parentheses, and a semicolon. So all that has to be drilled into the kids. They'll make mistakes with that in the beginning, but like I said, they do pick up on it very quickly, especially since there's only 4 commands that they have to know. And those are available in the docs. And students who can't type well, I just tell them copy and paste. They can do that. So the first Carol example is, I'm going to go through it with you there. This is something that is described in the video to the lesson. And so, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there is a video icon, a quiz icon, an example program icon, and then 2 programming assignment icons. All those make up the first lesson, which you can see I'm collapsing and expanding here by clicking on it. So that's the way those little activity buttons at the bottom work. So I'm going to actually just delete this, and the example, as you can see, needs to get Carol to move from the bottom left corner over to the space where you can see on the left-hand side, Carol is standing. And you might notice that there is a ball here that is not in the beginning world. So the first thing Carol needs to do is move. And you could even say Carol needs to move twice. So we'll move twice, and we'll try to run the code. Now, Carol did move twice, but you'll see that there's this red highlight on number 2. You can see I've left off the semicolon, and CodeHS, the code editor, alerts me to that and tells me that I've got to add that. These are all sort of supports that are in at the beginning, and they're not there forever. So it is a good tool for learning in that regard. So here we are, we've gotten to where Carol needs to be to put down the ball. And I don't remember how to put down the ball. So I can go over here, and I can look in my little cheat sheet, and I can say, oh yeah, here it is, it's a put ball command. And so I'll go over to my editor, and I will type put ball. And this time I won't forget the semicolon. And I just want to make sure this works. I made a typo. Notice that CodeHS does try, I will give them credit, they try hard to make error messages that are meaningful to students. Anyone who's done much computer programming will certainly know that error messages are not always all that helpful. And if you look at the actual error message, this is the real error message that I'm highlighting here. It says, uncaught reference error, football is not defined. That's actually a pretty good message if you read it. Football, it doesn't know what that is. But CodeHS has expanded that by adding this, which really points out, because this is a mistake people make a lot, that I forgot to capitalize the and therefore that command doesn't work. But if I go ahead and put the football with a capital B, it works. And then I can do move. And let's say that, I'm sorry, I was gonna jump ahead a little bit there for a minute, but it's not gonna work. I was gonna demonstrate the auto grader, but this is an example program, so there is no auto grader. So here I am now where Carol, after I added those two move statements, Carol is now at the end of the world where Carol should be, according to the description over here on the left, where Carol's ending world or the result world is. So we have now succeeded in getting Carol to do what we want to do. And that's the example program. And that's how students would actually see it. All right, so now what I'm going to ask you guys to do is go ahead and jump into your CodeHS Introduction to Programming with Carol lesson number 1 there, and you can skip the video, which I basically walked you through. You can look at the quiz if you want to, that's fine, but I really want you to focus on those 2 exercises and see if you can complete those 2 programs, and we'll give you a couple minutes to do that. If you want to give a thumbs up when you're done, feel free to do that so we have an idea of where people are. And as I said, we may not have enough time to give everybody the opportunity to finish, but go ahead and get started. Again, if there's any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat. Know that these are really basic introductory exercises, so that it's not, they're not programs that usually take a lot of time to complete. If you're having trouble or struggling, feel free to also ask for help. And just remember again, when you're done, go ahead and click on thumbs up reaction so we can see where people are.
I think the direct link might not be working right now, but if you are in your course, John, if you could go to CodeHS and just show them where to find this, how to navigate there,
Yes,
while we
absolutely.
try to get a direct link. Thank you.
Okay.
Or maybe the link is working, but some people just may not be in the course. So yeah, you have to be in the course for the direct link to work. And you can get the link to join our demo course right at the top of the question parking lot, which I just dropped the link to in the chat as well.
Oh yeah, so once you join the course, like I can see Alexis has already completed some work here. Anna has completed some work, George, Christina, Daniela. So I can just, like, this is a really great teacher tool, right? I can just scroll down and see who has completed something. And if I want to dive into that a little bit more, I want to look and see where Pamela is at. I can take a look and see that Pamela, I'm sorry for picking on you here, Pamela. Pamela has completed the quiz, looked at the example, and completed her first program. And it is kind of a dark green, which means that the auto grader has deemed it to be correct. And for these programs, the simple beginning programs especially, the auto grade is usually good enough. And she's working on this last program. She hasn't completed it yet, that's why it's yellow. And then if I refresh that, we might see that she's actually completed it now. So thank you, Pamela, for being my guinea pig today. All right, don't forget to use the thumbs up reaction on Zoom. Okay, I got a few there. They're ready to go. I'll give you guys another minute or so. Does that seem reasonable, Julia? 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think that's good because
Alright.
people will have access to this course
Right.
for many, many months after. So
Okay, good. Yeah. So if you want to dive back in, you can look at the recording and go through this at your own pace. Again, another nice thing about CodeHS, I did not show you the video, but you can go back and look at that video if you're struggling with this assignment, and it will go through all the main parts that you need to know to understand how to do this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward now. We'll take a look at the next slide. All right. So CodeHS also comes with handouts and worksheets for offline activities, good for homework, or maybe a post-class exit ticket, anything like that. You can find these resources available on CodeHS. Once you get the link to the slides, you can look at that handout. It basically talks about what commands you need to do, make Carol do certain things. So it's just a review of Carol commands. So the lessons that you saw here today did not have to be done the way I did it. You could have, what I did was I went through the slides on CodeHS and used those as my resource to guide my teaching and did direct instruction. I could have added my own slides. I could have made my own presentation. I could have asked students to watch that for homework and then had them come in the next day and just dive right in. We could watch it as a group and then discuss it as a class. So there's a lot of different ways just to use that video. The example, we started with a blank and we worked through it together. You can have students go through it on their own. You can give them a task to do to modify the example. So let's say I want Carol to put down 2 balls in that spot instead of 1. I could ask them how to do that. You can give them programs that are broken and ask them to fix them. Maybe Carol's putting the ball down in the wrong place. How do we fix that? A lot of different ways to use the example code. And I encourage everyone, if you are going to teach with CodeHS, to try to force kids somehow to really look at the examples, because they typically will not spend a lot of time on them if they're not forced to look at them in some way. I often ask students to ask questions. I often ask them questions about the code. The exercises, again, they can be done individually, which I did with you guys here. You can have them work together in groups or in pairs. No one way fits all here. And then the opener and the closer. Today we had a little discussion question. You can give exit tickets or use one of the handouts. And there's so a lot of different ways to open and close your lessons. All right. So we're going to take a quick little break here just to give you guys a chance to grab a coffee, go to the bathroom, whatever you might need. I know there's a lot here. After the break, we're going to take a look at the course catalog. I'm going to show you a little bit about how to create a course and sections. I'm going to show you how to customize a class if you want to do that, as well as dive into some of the tools and resources that are available for teachers. So I guess we'll do what, 5 minutes? Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think we can come back at the top of the hour.
All right.
Sounds
That's
good.
great. Yep. So top of the hour, we'll be back. And if anyone has questions, I'll stick around, and I'm sure the rest of the team will be here as well. So I see Daniela has a question. And this is actually just to me, so I'll read it. Daniela, give me a thumbs up or something to indicate that you're actually still here. I don't want it. Okay, great. So question is, when the student makes a mistake in the coding and doesn't know how to fix it, what can you do? So this is a great question because this is going to happen to every student. And one of the things that I really strive to sort of ingrain in my students is what to do if it's broken, what to do if you don't know what to do. So go back and look at the video. Often the video will talk about the code the very code that they need, or the very type of code they need to solve this problem. And maybe the mistake is simply a syntax mistake, or maybe they're using something that they heard of in the previous, some previous lesson, but they forgot about the new tool that they learned about that might be better here. Look at the documentation. Those docs are really helpful, especially when there's typos and syntax errors. Slow down the code, step through it one step at a time. Where does the program go wrong? I encourage them to ask other students to look at their code. So there are a lot of different ways for them to try to solve problems that they run into. And if they can't solve it, sometimes I will then take that student's code and put it on the board and see if anyone in the class can help them out. So mistakes are learning opportunities for sure.
And to add to that, I think that's also, it's good. You saw John when he was live coding the example, he made a mistake on purpose, right? So that happened. So making mistakes when you are demoing makes students feel like it's okay to make mistakes. And when it happens, they're not like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this,
And some people, I find this less in younger people, it's more of a generational thing, but there are some people who are timid around computers and they're afraid they're going to do something bad that might break something. And so I always encourage kids just to play with it. It's not going to break. And there's nothing you can do by coding in this environment that's going to cause harm. So I try to take away any fears or timidity they might have.
All right, I think we're ready to start back up and head into the course catalog.
All right. All right, welcome back. I hope you were able to get your coffee and everything else that you needed. We're going to take a quick look at the course catalog. And I'm going to actually jump over to the actual catalog rather than showing you the slide. So here it is. And you can see it is pretty big. I'll just slowly scroll through it so you can get an idea of some of the broad topics that are here. And then I'll show you how you can kind of narrow it down. But there are a lot of different curricula here in courses. There's the Python, there's the JavaScript, there's the AP classes, there's the cybersecurity, there's digital art with P5JS, which is a library, JavaScript library that allows students to jump right into making pictures without having to do a lot of work ahead of time. There's a game design, which is slightly different than the rest of CodeHS because it does require that you install Unity. So just a heads up on that. Roblox, I think, is another tool. You have to go into a different environment that not all schools allow. Some of the filters on school internet don't allow that. Data science, artificial intelligence. So let me go back up to the top here. You can see I didn't even get near the bottom there. If I want to look for Java classes, I can filter for Java or Python. I can look for my state. A lot of the states now have curriculum that CodeHS supports. If you just want to do an hour of code, just for a PTA type function or an after school meeting, they have a lot of different modules that are hour of code modules, and then AP, etc. There's a lot of different things. You can search for cybersecurity if you want to, and then here comes a bunch of different classes on cybersecurity, and so on. So I'm not going to go too much longer on that, but there's a lot there. If you find a course that you're interested in, you can add it to your courses. You can look at it. So let's say we want to find out more about this fundamentals of cybersecurity. We can just take a quick look at the units that it has. So here we have a quick little description of each unit in the course. And if we want to assign them right from here, if we're at that point, we can go ahead and do that. But let's say we're like, okay, this seems like it might be interesting. What else does it have? We can look for supplemental things that are added, you can add to the course. But let's say we want a deeper understanding of what this. There's a document that gives a more complete description of the class. Each module, each unit is described, and you can get a better detail of what your students are going to be doing in this particular class if you want to use this curriculum. So you really get an opportunity to find out what's in it. And then if you really want to find out, you can enroll in that class. So as a teacher, you can enroll in any of the classes and actually go through them yourself, which I encourage you to do if you're going to teach it. Really a good idea to do that ahead of time. And then if you want to assign it to a class, you can do that here as well. So that's the basic nutshell, the course catalog in a nutshell. So when you're selecting your course, think about your goals. Do you want to have an introductory to computer science class? Do you want to focus on programming, or maybe web design, cybersecurity, some other topic that CodeHS has, or even a topic they don't have? You want to expose people to a variety of topics or focus on one? And what sort of range of difficulty do you want? Do you have to go into advanced topics, or is it an intro class? Other courses, other considerations, of course, would be, how much time do you have? Do you want to have a programming course or a non-programming course? Do you want to be able to allow students to program using drag and drop blocks? How much experience do your kids have? How much experience do you have? That could be a big factor also. And are there standards that you need to address? So CSTA or state standards, you have to think about that, of course. So CodeHS has some tools to help you with that. And there are these coding pathways or course pathways that they have developed. And you can look at those at the links here. Again, once you get the slides, you can get these links, or maybe Zoe, if you want to, or someone can put them in the chat if necessary. But you can see here it starts with 6th and 7th grade, moving up to 7th, all the way to 12th, with different classes that work well in sequence. And for all of these classes in particular, I don't know if it extends to, I know it doesn't extend to everything, but it definitely extends to all these courses on the pathway. There is a map that you can find that indicates what standards, what CSTA standards a course fits. So you can find the standards that a course maps to using, sorry, my mistake on that. You can find that in this map that shows you what standards are addressed by which of those classes. So in order to start teaching with CodeHS, of course, you need to create a course and some sections. A course is simply the curriculum that your students are going to work through. So a course is your content, and it's made up of a series of assignments. Those assignments, as we've already seen, could be videos, examples, free response questions, quizzes, and programming assignments. So a lot of different types of assignments can be added, and you can add your own. So that you can definitely put your own spin on all of this stuff. A section is simply a group of students that are working on a course. So typically that would be a class, but if you had a situation where you had a group of students who were intro students and other students with more experience, and you wanted to give each of them a separate curriculum, you can do that. So creating a course is, you know, as simple or as difficult as you want to make it. If you find a CodeHS course that you want to build off of and that you like, all you need to do is go to the courses and find the course you want. Click on the Create New Course button. Find the course that you want in the template, so that drops down there, and then select the one you want. So for example, if I wanted to pick these are all Rory's classes. So these are all Rory courses that Sue made. If you were to do this, you would see the CodeHS courses that are from the course catalog. And once you create your own course, you can see your courses there. So for example, I use the JavaScript course, the Introduction to Programming in JavaScript. And then I made, from that template, Wilson's JavaScript course. And then I've modified that with some things that I'll try to show you in a moment. Once you create your course, you create sections, and this can be done the way we did it today by giving students a, once you create the section, you can give students a code and they can join the section. So you go to your course, you click on the Create Section icon, you give it a name. Typically, I name mine based on the period that the class meets. So you'll say, you know, period 4, Intro to Computer Science, and then that'll be the section. Once they get the section, there'll be a code, and you can give that student code to your students, and they can join using that code the way you did today. If you use Google Classroom, you can just synchronize the course the course section to your Google Classroom, and it'll import the roster. All right, so let's say you found your course and you want to customize things a little bit. So I'm going to move into more of a personal demo here and show you how I've actually modified the curriculum that I started with, which was the JavaScript curriculum. And so I just started with that, and I had my students go through that. But I learned that, as I mentioned a moment ago, that students don't pay attention to the example programs as much as I would like them to. So here is a lesson, for example, on if statements. And that lesson contains the video, a quiz, and 2 example programs. So I have added here a question. It's a free response question. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. And you will see that when we preview this, it looks like a CodeHS question, just like every other activity that they do. So I have added this question that asks them to take a look at this function that I made called not going to tell you. And I'm asking them to describe what that function will do. So you can see this function uses an if statement, and that's what they're learning about in this lesson. So I've directed them to think about what an if statement does and how it works. How did I do that? How did I end up making that? Well, it's quite easy. I went down here to add new assignment. And I'll just go through this real quick. I'm not going to take the time to actually get it all done for you, but I'll show you how easy it is. You go to free response. As you can see, there are a lot of different kinds of questions you can add here, activities. But in this case, it's free response. This is just going to be plain text. It's not a coding assignment, so I don't have to pick a language. I give it a name, so I just called it, exploration 1.10.3 or whatever it was. And then I type in the question. I can use formatting. I can copy and paste from a document that I've created, whatever it is. I can insert links or images, and then I save it. There's starter code, and this in a free response activity is not usually all that important, but I often just repeat the question here, so it's right there for them to look at. And here I can say, is this available to my students right now, or am I going to lock it, or am I going to schedule it to appear on their assignment list at sometime in the future? Do I have a due date? And how many points is it worth? So I want to put it in a category. I don't use that feature in CodeHS, but you can. Do I want the auto grader to grade it, or do I want to grade it myself? Well, in this case, a free response, I'm going to grade that myself. Do I want to make it so students can't copy and paste? Sometimes that's a nice thing to be able to prevent. So that's something you can think about. And that's it. Then you can preview it and see what it looks like. Once you have it, I'm going to pop out here. Once you have the question made, you can then move it up and down in the assignment sequence. If I decide I want to move this to a different lesson, I can. And you can also drag and drop entire modules. So if you go to edit here, and let's say I decide I want to do control structures before I do graphics. I can move that up like that, just dragging and dropping. So very easy to move things around and customize the course to fit your needs. All right, let's see, I think that covers, let me go back to the slides. Okay, yeah, we're moving content, same kind of thing. You can just find an assignment you don't want, click on the menu and hit delete. Just like when moving it up and down to reorder it. Adding an assignment, I just showed you how to do, so we'll skip that. And creating your own content is something I also just showed you how to do. So the knowledge-based article that you see linked here will go through the steps of adding your own modules. You can mix and match modules. Let's say you wanted to add a cybersecurity module to your, give students a break and mix it up a little bit. You could put that in between two other programming modules if you wanted to. And you can, as I've shown, sort of roll your own and put in whatever lessons you have as well. So CodeHS is pretty flexible that way. All right, let's see. The teacher tools and resources. We've talked about conversations, which is where students and teachers can send messages back and forth. The nice thing about that is that when a student sends a question, the teacher gets that in their grading queue, and I'll show you that in a moment. But the question is attached to the assignment that they're working on at the current time. So if they put in a question that says, I don't get it, or this is confusing me, it's something not very specific, you'll be able to see at least what problem they're working on and where they're at by the fact that this conversation question is attached to this assignment. So you can also start a conversation from the student roster just by clicking on the talk bubble. And you can send announcements to the entire class by clicking the announcement button. You can track students' progress by assignment, by lesson, by module. There's a lot of different sort of maps that you can look at in CodeHS to see where students are at. Time tracking shows you how much time they've spent on different parts of the platform, how long they spent on each program. The history, I think I already showed you, where you can go looking at what steps a student took to actually complete the program. And you can find out if a student was logged in on a particular day, which is helpful. So here is what the code review dashboard looks like. This is a space where I spend a lot of time. You can see at the top here where all the conversation questions are. So those help questions are prioritized and put at the top, separated from all the other stuff, which I find really useful because typically students will put a question up when they really need help, and it's nice to know that someone's struggling or has a question without having to dig through all the work that you've got submitted. Below that, there's the student submission section. And that's where you can see that students have submitted work. So here, Sophia Williams has submitted the Mariel Carroll program, and they did that at 6:22 on April 4th. You see a couple of buttons here on the right-hand side, help mode. Help mode allows you to go through all the questions in your queue one at a time. So you click on help mode, it brings up the first question, you answer it, it goes directly to the next question. You don't have to come back to the dashboard and click on the student that has the next question. Grade mode is similar, but it does the same thing with the work that students have submitted to be graded. FastGrade, I believe, is a pro tool, so it's not available for free, but it does allow you to go through programs when you're grading it's a little more streamlined. So here we're gonna take a look at grade mode. I mentioned grade mode already. Now we're gonna look at FastGrade. So FastGrade is this window here where you can see that on the left you have these. You have these buttons, the green and the pink. Green meaning, yep, this is good. Pink meaning, no, it needs some kind of work. I don't use those buttons too much because they're typically they don't give a lot of feedback. They're just kind of yes or no. But you can see there's a comment space where you can type a comment, and you can see below that there are canned responses. So that's a real helpful tool. If you find that you're giving the same type of feedback to students who make similar mistakes, you can type up a response and then send that to students just by clicking on that response without having to type it all over again. I actually have a big document that includes a lot of canned responses that I use, and I find that to be a helpful tool. Because I have so many of them, to be able to scroll through them in this kind of a menu would take too long, and I find a Word document that I can search a lot quicker. But you can copy and paste comments and then send them off to the students, where they then can read your feedback and fix whatever it is that needs to be improved. Here is a look at the gradebook, one of the gradebook views that you can have. And if you look on the right-hand side, you see that it's very configurable as to what you see in the gradebook. So you might not want to see if a student has looked at the video or not. That might not be interesting to clutter up the screen with. The example programs, also something you might not want to clutter up the screen with. But the exercises, the programming problems are all important to kind of keep track of. And you can see here, for example, the one I'm pointing to here with a 0 and a pink square. Pink means that it needs work. If you look at the upper left corner there, where it gives you the different colors, you can see pink means needs work. If we go to the yellow one here, you can see that yellow means that it has been looked at or started, but it hasn't been completed. Gray ones haven't been started at all. And you can get a really good idea by looking at this one page, how the class is doing and which students are falling behind and which students are really making good progress. Another nice thing about this is if you click on any one of those squares, it'll take you right to that code. So pretty nice tool to be able to jump around from one student to another without having to find that student in the roster and get their assignments that way. You can, as I already mentioned, you can determine whether or not an assignment is auto-graded or teacher-graded. Now, even if it's teacher-graded, it does go through the auto-grader before it gets to you, if there is an auto-grader. So that's a really nice thing that allows you to know that the code that you get is not going to be completely wrong. It's going to, in most cases, at least do some minimum, or it'll do what the programming assignment is asking it to do. I spend a lot of time looking at the programming structures, the style of programming, the comments. These are things that the auto-grader does not look at, and that require more of a human intervention, human eye. But There are definitely programs, especially the simpler ones, that it's fine to have the autograder do it because there's really not a lot of variation, and you can save yourself some time that way. All right, so the CodeHS lesson plans are available to you. They go through all different aspects of a lesson, from discussing questions to various activities that are included in the curriculum, problem guides, solutions. I will caution you that with any programming classes, there's not necessarily one solution that fits, that everyone's going to come up with. With very simple programming, that's true. But when you get with any level of complexity, there's not one right answer. So the solutions are a guide, and they can certainly show you this is one way to do it. But I do caution you, especially if you're beginning, not to say that a student that didn't do it this way, the way the CodeHS solution shows you how to do it, if they don't do it that way, it's wrong. That's not necessarily the case. Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake here. Okay, good. So definitely take a look at the lessons and lesson plans and guides that they, here it is, I'll show it to you a little bit more slowly. You got your objective, your activity. Again, here you can click on each of these things and look at them. There are here solutions. Now, with these programs are fairly simple, and there really aren't too many ways to solve these problems. So in this particular example, the answer they give you here is probably the answer you're going to get. There's vocabulary that they hand out, that they list for you. There's handouts. So you can use these as homework or exit tickets, whatever works for your class. And there's also a textbook that students can access through the More menu in the code editor. And it does give more of a textbook-like approach to whatever lesson you're choosing. So you can always point kids to that as another place to go when they're having trouble. If they didn't understand the video, maybe the textbook examples will be helpful to them. There are some strategies here for how to teach the lesson, prior knowledge that students might want to have. And there's a link here to the video slides that you can go right through. You can print them or look at them. So that's really nice the way the lesson plans have so many different things embedded in them. So a lot of different things, modifications, standards that apply. So you can definitely spend some time looking at those. And so here we have some of the offline materials. This is a graphic organizer that students can use when they're about to get started with a programming exercise. They have a space for taking notes while they watch the video. They have a space for sort of drawing pictures if necessary. They have a place to write down pseudocode, which is an outline of what the code should do, using more English-like language rather than code. And then that pseudocode can be translated into Carol commands. For example, if we're thinking about the example program, the pseudocode might say, move 2 times, put down a ball, move 2 more times. Those pseudocodes, that pseudocode can be translated directly into move, move, put ball, move, move. And it's a step that students can take to help them get to the code. This worksheet over here, this tag notebook, allows students, if they're doing HTML assignments, to write down and keep track of the different tags they're going to use in their web page. A nice little reference tool they can have. Other resources, there are so many. You can become a CodeHS certified educator. So CodeHS will help you, achieve certain levels of competence in different CodeHS topics, and you can become a certified educator. There are lots of free CodeHS and teacher-led workshops like this one. So this is just the beginning for you guys if you're going to join the CodeHS community. You can look at the community on Slack. There are CodeHS micro credentials you can earn, the Facebook group, and of course, social media. So a lot of different places where you can connect with the CodeHS team and other teachers. And I will say, CodeHS support team is really exemplary. If you have questions, if you have problems, I would say, they're not there 24/7, but they're there a lot, and they do respond quickly. So know that with CodeHS, you definitely have people behind you who can help you out when there are questions. And certainly the Facebook community, the Slack community is available all the time.
All right, before we finish up, because we do still have a lot of time, and we want to make sure that you guys, a lot of the responses that we got of who's here are in a lot of similar situations. So it's really nice to be able to connect with other teachers, other people who may be new to CodeHS or may have used it before. So we're gonna first see if there's any questions that anyone has specifically for John. And then we can have a few minutes in a breakout room so you can network a bit with the other teachers that are here. But I do see Jane, you asked about the support. So we have a lot of different types of supports. John, if you could actually go to the CodeHS page and go to the toolbox and just show the support section, because we have a lot of different ways for you to ask questions. So if you see at the top of John's screen, there's a tab that says toolbox, and that has a lot of helpful information in there. And if you go to the orange support section, you'll see contact us. We'll easily send a message. The knowledge base is amazing. Basically anything you're asking. So in the parking lot, a lot of you have been asking about a lot of different things. If you just search for those in the knowledge base, you will probably come up with multiple articles that will help you with demos and images right there. So there's a lot of ways for you to ask about Pro and all of these things, talk to other teachers there. We have lots of different ways to get support. So that is definitely a really good spot to go. And most of the CodeHS team have been teachers before. So we understand that when you ask a question, you really want an answer, or you're wondering, this would make my life easier if this existed. We are constantly coming out with new tools to help you out and make sure that it is easy. We're making your job as easy as we can on our end. Because we understand the amount of work that teachers have to do every day. We saw Google Classroom.
I can definitely just speak personally about that. I lost count of the number of things that I have given as feedback to CodeHS that have ended up implemented on their platform or in their curriculum. So they really do listen to teacher feedback, and sometimes if you find a bug or something, they'll fix it in that day. It's really, they're very, very good.
Yes, John and his students have found a lot of our bugs, so he has let us know, and we are very, very thankful for that. Does anyone else have any questions specifically for John? You can either raise your hand or throw it in the chat. All right, and we can have a bit of time to wrap up at the end. I know that John quickly was talking about some other workshops that we have. So we are going to share that with you as well at the end. But just for maybe 15 minutes, it is really helpful to be able to talk to other teachers in similar scenarios to you. So we're going to open some breakout rooms. If you are not able to stay on, that is totally fine. But we would like to have you be able to chat with each other for a little bit before we end today. So,
and Julia, just before we do that, I'm going to throw the workshop survey link in the chat in case anyone does have to leave. You're able to fill out the survey before you do.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah.
Also, are there questions in the parking lot that went unanswered? Elizabeth was saying that that things went by too fast. I totally get that. There's a lot there. And I encourage you, Elizabeth, to go through at your own pace.
Yeah, in the parking lot, everything is answered with links. So definitely check there. But as you are talking or thinking of something else, throw those questions in there, because me and Lindsay always like a challenge. We want to help you out. All right, so we're going to open some breakout rooms. We'll just take 10 minutes so you can chat through. If you want to just, work through the curriculum yourself, we didn't have too much time for you to try out those Carol exercises yet. So if you want to hop in there and for 10 minutes, just check that out before we wrap up. That's a great way to spend your time as well.
And I'm happy to pop into the breakout rooms and answer questions. So I can definitely do that.
All right. So the breakout rooms are open. You're going to, because we want to allow you to stay in the main room, if you want to just work through content or ask John some questions, you can just go to breakout rooms and click join. There's a join button, and you can hop in there and start a chat. And we'll close them in about 10 minutes. And if you're having any trouble trying to find that join button, just let us know.
You want me to pop into the rooms and just see if people have questions?
Sure.
Okay, I'll pop around and I'll come back in a few minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Hello, everyone. I see lots of you coming back. Hopefully you had a chance to chat with each other, or if I know some of our rooms were a little quiet. If you hopefully you were able to go through some of the content, see some of the resources. Before we finish up, now I just wanted to, I saw a lot of questions coming into the chat. I have moved a lot of them to the parking lot, so they're getting answered there. But before we finish up, maybe that discussion brought up some other questions. So if you wanted to ask any questions to John now is a good time. And you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat. All right. Well, we do have that parking lot available. If you want to just check out the parking lot, maybe some of the questions that you didn't know you had are on there with some answers and some links. So that is a good spot to check out. So let me just share this out. Got all the Zoom things here. All right. So we just want to finish up. I know John ran through this a little bit. Just letting you know, there's so many ways to stay in touch with the CodeHS team, with other teachers who use CodeHS, a lot of different opportunities for you to get involved. And we saw a little bit and saw some interested people in some additional workshops. So now is our busiest time, as you could imagine, teachers getting excited for the year coming and thinking about what different courses they're going to teach and how they're going to use CodeHS in their classroom. So we do have a workshop coming up on Thursday, preparing to teach AP Computer Science Principles. This is a really popular course that students take. So if you are going to be teaching that course, or you're just interested to know about that course, this is a great one to sign up for. We also have another workshop on Friday about customizing your lessons for scaffolding for different students and differentiation, which is something that we all have to figure out how to best do in our classroom. So this is an awesome session that I think would really benefit anyone who is teaching CodeHS. And we did share out the survey earlier, but if you could just take a few minutes, it's pretty short, just to let us know how this was. We really use your feedback to make sure that these PD sessions are giving you what you're looking for. So that is really helpful for us. And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone has any last questions, you can throw them in there. I see we have a lot of links going in there. Someone asking about course for Intro to Java. So we do have a bunch of that. Paul, Lindsay is going to throw your question into the parking lot so that we can make sure we give you a link to the different courses that are available to you. Yep. And that parking lot will stay active for a while. So if you want to have that, on your saved document so that you can check back and see. I know that as a teacher, you're like, I'm kind of excited about next year right now, but I also want to stay in the summer mode. So I totally get if you want to, put these things on the side and revisit them in a little while. All right. If anyone has any questions, we'll stay on for a last few minutes, but thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, John, for leading us through all of that amazing content and giving us your experiences that you've used in your classroom as well. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.